Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Cinema Gems with your hosts Aaron Kramers and
Me llamo Thomas McClellan.
And tonight's film, we're going to be taking a look at the 2006 fantasy film directed by Guillermo Del Toro, Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh yeah. Where to start with this one? I remember when they marketed the film, they marketed it as sort of like the go-to dark adult children's fairy tale for adults, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
But they left out one important little detail in the trailer. Like, the entire film's in Spanish.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at first, so I was a bit surprised. I was like, oh, it's all in Spanish. I did not know that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still like the film, but the marketing on that was a bit sneaky, if you ask me.
Yeah, it is.
Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's talk about the story.
It's about this girl, Ophelia, whose mother is taking her to move in with her new husband, Colonel Vidal.
He's my favorite, man, honestly.
Like, he is completely evil.
Yeah, he also feels like he has to live up to some sort of legacy kind of thing that his dad left behind or something like that. And he seems to be obsessed with the image of having a son to carry on that legacy kind of thing. Like, he's always obsessing about his watch and stuff like that. But, what would you say the scariest scene with him would be?
The bottle scene.
Oh, yeah. I've got to admit, I cringed the entire time when I ever heard the sort of sound. I was like, ugh. I have to say, I'm sort of conflicted with two scenes that I was terrified the most with him, actually.
And what's that?
Well, first we got the torture scene, which is, ugh, it just rubs me the wrong way, man. It's sort of, oh God, why? Sort of thing. And I feel bad because he's essentially picking on somebody who he feels is inferior to him because he stutters and stuff like that. And it's just, oh, it makes me sick sometimes. But I have to say, what really scared me was the shaving scene, actually.
Really?
Yeah, not a lot of people know this, but actually, Guillermo Del Toro was making a homage to another movie during that scene, actually.
What's that?
Some film directed by this Spanish filmmaker. I think it was Luis Buñuel, and it was written by, Salvador Dali, actually. And I forget what it's called, but in the scene, there's a scene where we see somebody's eye get slit open with a razor, actually. And apparently, there was also a scene where you see kind of a knife go across a mirror. That's basically Guillermo del Toro's interpretation of that scene right there.
Oh, really?
And if you look really carefully, the character of Vidal looks an awful lot like the same dude from that film with the razor, actually. Same hair, same clothes, even the same face almost. The way he's got that sneer in his eye, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's implied that the base is located near some sort of portal or something to another world.
Oh, really?
Or I think that's what it's not told outright, but I think it's implied that it's next to this labyrinth, which just so happens to be the gateway to another dimension or something like that.
Or is it really? Or is it all in Ophelia's head?
There is also the theory suggesting that maybe this is all Ophelia's way of coping with being in fascist Spain and all that. Mm-hmm. And this is just all in the child's imagination, but other than that, there's not really too much to suggest that, except maybe the ending.
Maybe this is sort of like an interpretation of a child's dream or something like that. Or, spoiler alert, when she gets shot, maybe this is sort of like her dying dream kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly, but it's kind of left ambiguous to what's really happening because you don't know per se, and that's good because it leaves a lot up for the viewer to decide.
Let's also talk about the characters themselves also.
Ophelia.
And she's a very interesting character because she's kind of sheltered. She's sort of locked. She's trying to like keep away from the world, kind of. because she lives in a very dysfunctional kind of situation, kind of.
Yes, and the main antagonist, Colonel Vidal.
Oof, God, that man scared the hell out of me, honestly.
Petty.
Very petty, but he's got that sort of fear factor about him. It's like he can snap at any time, and quite literally, he'll beat your face in with a bottle.
Yeah, I was gonna say that scene where he was beating the shit out of like guy with a bottle is
Yeah.
not easy to watch.
Apparently, Guillermo Del Toro said that when he was living in Mexico, he saw someone get beaten with a bottle kind of similar to that, and that's what inspired that scene. In fact, a lot of the violence that the General does was inspired by a lot of stuff that the director was personally exposed to. For example, we have the scene where he gets shot right beneath the eye.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Guillermo del Toro worked in a morgue a lot of his time in Mexico, and he said he actually saw someone who was shot just below the eye, and he saw the way that their eye kind of rolled back in their head kind of thing, and then he had a sandwich afterwards.
Oh.
He's a weird dude. But my favorite scene is the scene where he's shaving. Just the way he's kind of seems like he's trying to intimidate himself, and with that razor gives me the chills every time. But then we also got the mom character, and I feel really bad for her, man. She's pregnant. She's in a condition where she's not supposed to be there, pretty much. Like when you're in that late stage of pregnancy, it can get really hard on you. But I also feel like she's kind of a very depressed character a lot of the time. Didn't you get that too, kind of?
Yeah, I kind of did.
It seems like she's been through a lot, and she's not coping with it as well as she would want to. And because of that, she's convinced that the world is nothing but just cruelty to the innocent everywhere, pretty much. But then we also got some of the gooder characters, such as the resistance fighters.
Mm-hmm.
We get the doctor who is convinced that nothing ever changes, really. And he is kind of right, because the fascist government in Spain lasted until 1975, actually. So, in a sense, the doctor is the most smartest character, pretty much. And it was a real shame to see him die like that. But then we've also got the housemaid, her brother, and I really feel like this is a really strong character, and she's trying to do her best, but she's at the tipping point where she might crack, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the setting. I actually quite like, to be honest.
The World War II setting.
Well, this was interesting because Spain wasn't involved in World War II. They were involved in a civil war for years, and then afterwards they were kind of involved with some guerrilla activity kind of stuff, because Spain was kind of a fascist state at the time with a lot of support from the Third Reich in Germany and some Italian fascists. But it was also an interesting... There's an interesting statement they actually make in the film, actually.
And what's that?
Now, there's a scene where the doctor's talking to the leader of the rebels, and the rebels start saying they're going to basically kill Vidal and then they can go home and stuff like that. But he brings up a little interesting parallel saying, you kill him, they're just going to replace him with someone even worse. And that's kind of true, because the fascist government in Spain lasted until 1975, actually.
Oh my.
So, in a way, what's the point, really? If you do kill him, they're just going to replace him with another, and another, and another, pretty much. But there's also a little bit of hope, because saying, even though this is strong at the moment, things fade over times.
Yeah.
Which is what the story's about. It's about people trying to cope with the brutality of this on the innocents, pretty much.
But more importantly, when you're talking about a Guillermo Del Toro film, you have to talk about one specific thing. The creatures.
Oh.
The creatures, yes.
The creature effects are exceptional.
I
As
mean,
with any other Guillermo Del Toro movie.
there's not a lot of CGI used here. I mean, there's some, but it's used sparingly, and like the majority of them are, I think, animatronics and people in prosthetics, actually.
Yes, like, especially if Doug Jones is involved.
Yeah, I think Doug Jones is like Del Toro's man muse, pretty much. We get to see him as a goat. What more do you want from us?
Yes.
And we also get to see him as one of my most personal favorite monsters, the Pale Man. That scared the crap out of me every time, pretty much. And the eye things and fingers. I think it's implied that it eats children, so it's kind of like that boogeyman character that you hear in a lot of stories. An interesting fact, actually, Doug Jones didn't know a word of Spanish before going on for the film.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did for the film is they would have a translator come on board. They would read the script to Doug in English, and then he would have the translator say the sentence that Doug's supposed to say as the Goat Man to him, and Doug would try to repeat it back in Spanish, pretty much. So he had to both wear the prosthetics on and learn Spanish really quickly.
Hmm.
And as Doug Jones is saying, I can't seem to do a Del Toro film without learning a new language, pretty much. I mean, he had to learn Spanish for that, and he had to learn Irish Gaelic for Hellboy 2 and stuff like that.
And he, no, he didn't learn anything in The Shape of Water.
Except sign, which is kind of a language. In its own
pretty
way.
much.
In its own way. My favorite character, I have to admit, I like the Doug Jones characters, but I also like the Toad character actually a lot.
The Toad character?
Yeah, the Toad. It's interesting because it kind of reminds me of some of those old legends. It kind of reminds me of a character from Dark Souls, almost, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I forget what it was. It was like a giant toad boss battle sort of thing. And it was also, ironically, under a tree, also.
Ooh.
So we got this sort of... this toad is kind of like a symbolism of the state of rot in society or something like that, because it's been stuck in this tree so long that it's been rotting everything around it and killing it.
What would you say out of all the human characters, what was your favorite?
My favorite?
If you have to say, just what character kind of grabbed you the most?
The leader of the Resistance.
Oh, that guy?
Yeah.
That's interesting. We don't see him a lot, actually. But when he does show up, he's pretty memorable.
Mm-hmm.
You get the idea that he's fighting for what he believes in, but he might not have the foresight for all that, but he's got a good heart at the thing. My favorite character, actually, strange enough, would have to be his sister, actually. The sister of the rebel leader.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know. She's sort of got that thing where you can never really tell at first where her legions lie. You can kind of tell that she's doing something, but then when we find out she's with the rebels, you're like, oh, she's been helping them the whole time. And it's kind of, they didn't really tell us that at first. And then it seems like she's able to cope with a lot of stuff, unlike other people. I mean, she was able to cope with the captain for years, pretty much. But she's a lot more stronger than the other characters because she's the one that cut open his mouth, right? Remember, with the knife?
Yeah, I remember.
So basically, she's the more capable out of all the characters. She's able to cope with a lot of more stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit, the symbolism in this movie I really particularly like also.
Really?
You get the feeling that this was kind of based on a lot of those sort of older Grimm fairy tales. You know, stuff about children having to learn a lesson and stuff like that. So a lot of childhood nostalgia with some of the films.
Right.
But also, it seems to be dealing with a lot of dark imagery, which is what I like. Particularly, this is a pretty running good theme. It's symbols with gateways. We get the gateway to the Labyrinth, which is kind of like a portal. We get entering the tree. We see them entering through... We get a lot of shots of people entering through doors a lot.
There's even if you would argue metaphorically, and this is a spoiler, guys.
Yeah.
The gateway to, like, the fantasy world after Ophelia dies.
Kind of like a rebirth.
Yes.
I remember somebody told me that the reason for that is because this film is chock full of Yonic symbolism. And for those of you who don't know what Yonic symbolism is, it's kind of like the idea of phallic imagery, but it's reverse.
It's the opposite of phallic imagery.
It's about pretty much vaginas.
Lady parts.
Vaginas, folks, yeah. And you can see that a lot, especially with the way that a lot of the gateways are designed. The tree I like particularly because it's not subtle whatsoever, pretty much. I mean, look at that thing. I'm just getting aroused just watching this, man.
Easy now, we're on YouTube.
Oh, oops, I'm sorry. Well, if you had to say something you didn't like about the film, what would it be?
There's not a lot that I don't like, you know. It is a bit slow at parts, but I really liked it besides that.
Okay. That's true too. I admit it's a bit slow in a few areas. Especially when she disobeys the Fawn Man and you think that he's going to be out of the film forever and you're like, well, now what's going to happen kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, something I didn't kind of like was not exactly the marketing. It was, I don't know. Ophelia is sometimes the most disobedient character in the film. I'll admit. Like, come on, really? You couldn't just listen to the weird fawn man? Don't eat the food. Come on, what are you doing, Ophelia? What are you doing?
Yeah, pretty much.
Although, to be fair, it is kind of based on Grimm fairy tales where, children would... The movie is basically listen to your parents because they'll tell you what to do kind of thing. And I'll admit, that's where it's kind of got the charm going also for it.
Yeah.
Because this film does have a lot of a childlike charm to it also. Especially with the camera work, the characters, the designs, and even the music. I will admit, the human characters are interesting, and some of them are downright terrifying. The creature effects in this are amazing, and the music particularly I quite like, actually. Kind of gives this sort of soft lullaby theme everywhere, so you almost feel at ease with it a lot of the times. So what would you have to rate it?
I would rate this a 9.5 out of 10.
9.5, really?
Yes.
Wow.
How about you?
Let's see. I'm gonna have to give this an 8.5 out of 10 because while I was kind of tricked by the marketing with this because I thought it was going to be just a regular Del Toro film, but I was kind of surprised with it being in Spanish, but I like it in Spanish because it gives it a more authentic feel. So, besides the marketing and maybe the pacing, other than that, the film is just brilliant. I'll admit, this film really feels like he was given full control to do whatever he wanted with this film. It's not like Pacific Rim where he had to get a certain idea for it kind of thing. No, with this and like Shape of Water, it was all just him on his own pretty much thing. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate him for that.
Yes.
Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button if you haven't already. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button along with the bell for notification. And make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon where you can donate money to us and we will give you something in return, like a requested video or something.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll see you guys next time.
Buenas noches.
Take care.
Yeah.